A process flow diagram shows the steps in a process. And the key here is that we use different symbols to represent when we have an activity versus a decision. And we also represent when we're pulling items from storage. So maybe you need a tool that you have in the closet, or whether we need to collect information or input from someone else. So when we create a process flow diagram, our start and stopping positions are circles. The activities or steps in the process are squares. And then we use diamonds for decisions. One of the mistakes people typically make when they make process flow diagrams is that they don't have enough decisions. So think about if you're handing this off to someone else to replicate exactly what you do, have you put in place every time you even just automatically made a decision? Okay, and have you included all the steps? We put a triangle if we're pulling an item from storage, so if our input is some kind of physical input, and we use a parallelogram if we are pulling information from others. When we are doing evaluation, enterprise analytics of how the process is going, we might put a dot in the process to indicate where the project, where the process is most at risk. In quality management, so if we're doing enterprise analytics where we are looking at why do we have quality issues, then we would use what we call critical control points. This is the point at which the quality is most at risk, and you would put in procedures to prevent those quality issues, monitoring, assessment, that type of thing. And we denote it with that same black dot along our process flow diagram for where the quality is most at risk. So let's look at an example of a process flow diagram. So let's suppose I'm going to create a process for lunch plans. The first step is to review the menu. I'm going to decide the place. If I can't find a place, I go back and review more menus. If I can decide the place, then I'm going to get my friend's order. You can see the parallelogram says I'm getting input, information input from others. Once I get the friend's order, I will then decide my own order. If I can't find something that I want to order, then I go back to reviewing menus and the process restarts here. If I have my friend's order and I can decide on my order, then I'm going to place the order. I'm going to pay. The part that my head is covering up is the fact that I am waiting for the food to arrive, and then the process ends when I eat. So here you can see we had two decisions. We had information input from someone else, and then you can see the steps in the process. We start and we end with a circle. We can look at even more complicated process flow diagrams. You think that making macaroni and cheese is a very simple process, except for when you actually outline all of the steps in the process and all the decisions that are made, you can see how complicated making macaroni and cheese can be. Well, how do you go about making a process flow diagram? You can make process flow diagrams in Python. I don't particularly like it. I find it really hard to use, but you can. If you decide to do it in Python, you'll use something called SchemDraw, and you'll need to install it, pip install SchemDraw. And this workbook that I'm showing you here is the one that's related to the PERT process, because we can create diagrams with the same SchemDraw to help with our program evaluation review techniques when we're looking at variability in the steps in the process. And the example we're looking at there is making or building a house. So you would need to import SchemDraw, and from SchemDraw import flow. Then you would use commands similar to this where you're telling it where to connect. So start is going to be a circle, and you can label it. You can have flow arrows. You tell it where to go. And so the code that looks like this creates a flow here where we start, we design, we lay the foundation, and so on. But I find that it's really a pain in the butt to use this SchemDraw in Python. So if you have access then to Microsoft 365 and Visio, it's not available to all packages in Microsoft. So if you have that, then this is a much faster way to create flowcharts, although you can create flowcharts with just any kind of draw program. So if you're in Microsoft Visio and you're creating a flowchart, it's way easier to do that. What you'll find is that in Microsoft Visio, it has all of the symbols here on the left, which is just kind of slow at the moment loading. But then we can drag and drop our circles, our squares, so I can, oh my goodness, why is this so slow? But then you can type in here that this is your starting position, and then you can do rectangles or squares for your activities. And so what was the first thing we went to? Review menus. And then what you can do is you can grab an arrow here and connect. And you can see it real easy adds to the flow. We then need a diamond for our decision. So where's our diamond here? All right, so here we can make a decision. Trying to make them the same size here. Whoop. And then if we go back, let's just go back to the slides. What did I have on those slides? I had lunch plan, review menu, decide place. Oops, that's not what I want. Decide place. And then I would connect here, make sure I have my arrow, connect to the place. If I can't find something, I can go back here and you can adjust this a bit. Oh, not doing so good here today. All right, pull this and you can stretch it out. So you can create your flow quite nicely with Visio. I find it's the fastest. I use it all the time for all kinds of visuals. And so if you have access through Microsoft 365 to create your process flow diagrams, I recommend doing that as opposed to, say, in Python or somewhere else, just because you can drag and drop. Here's our parallelogram. Here's our triangle. We would end with a circle. So you can see that all of the components are here and we can wrap it around. So then as you move things and reorganize, it keeps your flow with you, and then you can just keep things from overlapping. You can create this. So if you've looked at other videos where I have these decision trees for what type of graph visualizations data visualizations or graphs to use, what type of inferential statistics to use, I've built those all in Microsoft Visio. It works really great for these process flow diagrams. So once again, our process flow diagram, just go back to our here. We have circles for start and stop, squares or rectangles for activities. Decisions are diamonds. When you are splitting, split should only happen at decision. So some kind of decision determines whether you take this next action or some other action. There should never be splits happening at steps, at squares, at activities. They always happen at decisions based on what happens. So here we can't find, we go back here. So you might have some text here that says yes or no, or, you know, we make this choice or this choice. And so that's outside of these little images here. What's inside the diamond is the decision. What's inside the square is the step, one step at a time. So that means that when we look at something like making macaroni and cheese, getting a cup, measuring the water, pouring the water, all of those are steps. And in fact, even though this is quite a detailed process flow, it's actually even more complicated because did we put enough water into our measurement? How much water do we need? Those are all decisions that you make. And when you hand this off to someone else, you're just assuming they know this information. And so in order to ensure the process is replicated, is followed just as you would do it, you really need to outline those decisions about whether or not it's enough water, whether or not you have enough ingredients, whether you grab the right size pan, and so on. So we want to make sure that we have the right symbols, and we want to make sure that we have fully outlined the process from start to finish. If during the process, the decision leads you to stop the process, then you put a circle here to indicate that you have either gone to a new process flow diagram or that the process itself has stopped. Otherwise, you're going through until the end, till you get to that final step. All right, so Microsoft Visio, great for creating process flows, but you can create these process flows in any type of drawing tool. You can also create them in Python with SchemDraw. And if you want to try that out, I encourage you to Google SchemDraw. There are some examples of flows on their website as they show you how to build it, but it is, I found, very difficult to use because you have to get all your arrows. It's not a nice, simple, straight line. It gets quite complicated. So I encourage you, if you want to try it, check it out. Otherwise, use Microsoft Visio or some drawing software.